What's the best revenge story you know? Small revenge from a child. I got bullied as a kid, as did most. It was 1983, and my 8th grade class went to the beach. My bullies were hanging out. I was solo for safety. They went into the water. I crushed up a bag of potatoes chips and spread them all over my enemy's blankets and towels as I casually walked past. It took less than 5 minutes for about 50 gulls to find the spot. I remember reading about a woman who would bring her lunch and a can of Coke and put it in the work fridge. The can of Coke went missing repeatedly. So she took a very hot pepper, cut it in half, and rubbed it around the opening area. The thief was discovered. I had an instructor in the Navy who had just started a deployment on board a destroyer and had gone to put his clothes in the washer, but had forgotten his detergent. So, he put his clothes in the wash and started it and walked back to grab the detergent. Coming back to the machine very shortly after, he had found that somebody had grabbed his soaking wet clothes and threw them on the deck and put their clothes in the machine. Seeing this, he grabbed their clothes out and threw them all over the side of the ship. The deployment had just started, and this random sailor would now be without some of his clothes for months because he wanted to be an asshat. I witnessed on a job site one day a delivery driver had gotten into an argument with some roofers who were, obviously, up on the roof. The delivery driver then pushed their ladder over so they were stuck up on the roof. Then he was guarding it so no good Samaritan could come get the ladder back up. Well, a few minutes later the delivery driver was standing within range, so one of the roofers started peeing on him from up on the house. Residential construction is a fun industry, kids. This isn't particularly great, but I enjoyed it. Had a co-worker who disliked me for no reason, would argue with me over asinine things just for the sake of it. When I got him for Secret Santa, I, knowing he was colorblind, bought him a Rubik's Cube. I knew someone that signed someone up for every newsletter, magazine, junk mail, samples, etc. Of course that puts you on other mailing lists, then more, and more, etc. They told me their victim received boxes and boxes of mail every day. It got to the point where it wouldn't fit in their mailbox, and the mailman had to knock on their door each day with an entire box. Once I met a girl at a bar whose boyfriend had cheated on her. So she snuck into his house and stole every light bulb he had. Lamps, fridge, microwave, you name it, she hauled it out of there. Back in high school there was a boy, let's call him Bob, that was incredibly talented with computers, but was bullied a lot by another kid for being a nerd. Well, they had AA class together that took place every day in a computer lab, and they all had assigned seats, with Bob and his bully on opposite sides of the room from each other. Well, Bob realized one day that the school's computers had very bad security, so he was able to install software onto his bully's computer that allowed him to remotely control the bully's computer from his own computer across the room. Then when class was in session, whenever the teacher was passing by the bully's computer, Bob would pull up porn on the bully's computer screen. The bully could never adequately explain to the teacher why porn was magically popping up on his computer, so he got constantly in trouble for having porn open in school, and from then on out was teased by the other students for it. This has Star Wars spoilers. But my favorite revenge story. I made it a full week after the first of the new trilogy movies came out, without having it spoiled. I decided after work I was gonna go see it. Thought it would be fun to watch it stoned, so I stopped by my dealer's place to pick up some weed before the movie. While there, I told him I haven't seen the new movie yet. I was going to see it in like 30 minutes, and I was excited. He responded, really liked it. I was bummed when Han Solo died. Like, dude. I just fucking told you I was on my way to see it. That was the last time I went to him. Stopped talking to him. A year goes by, and the next movie came out. You can bet your ass I was there for the midnight showing. The movie ends, and before leaving the theater I pull out my phone, and you already know. I sent him a text around 2 a.m. At this point he didn't even have my number anymore. The text I sent read: Luke dies. Leia lives. And vengeance is mine. The response minutes later was, what the fuck? Who is this? One like the one I recently pulled. The neighbor, her kids, and her guests kept parking in front of my house even though she had plenty of space in front of hers. The property across from her has its side facing her house, so she has plenty of parking on both sides, and has a big driveway that can fit 4 different cars. She was keeping all of us, who live here, from being able to park in front of our own house. So I started parking in front of her house as revenge. The short end of it is that she got pissed and came over one day. I was called mean, vindictive, etc. I was told she can legally park wherever she wants, but if I kept parking in front of her house, she would call the cops on me when I informed her that I can also park anywhere I want legally. It worked out because none of them park in front of my house anymore, and I laugh internally with how they all give me a pissed off glare anytime they see me outside. My ex had to wear a tie to work every day, but didn't know how to tie one. I tied each of them, and then he'd put one over his neck and adjust, and leave it tied in the closet. When I realized it was a really bad relationship that I needed to leave, I packed up all my stuff and my cat while he was out, but not at work or wearing a tie. On one final, petty impulse, I walked back into the closet and yanked out all the knots. Then I drove to my aunt's house and called my parents. Ex-girlfriend was dating a man that chose not to follow their safe word while having sex. She was handcuffed to the bed, and he basically anally raped her. She was disgusted, ruined, shocked, etc. She was a mess. She talked with him about what he did, and how it hurt her, and he didn't see how anything he did was wrong. This pissed her off, but she calmly waits for her turn. So a month or so later he's the one handcuffed to the bed eagerly waiting for good times. She came out of the bathroom, squatted on his chest and left a nice steamy pile of shit. His parents, who just flew in from England to visit, found him the following morning. A friend of mine moved to another city and started hanging out with a book club. One woman in the group got divorced and remarried to a drunk and abusive man. He would threaten and beat her, but she wouldn't leave him. Until he threatened her son from her first marriage. So, she walked up behind him and shot him in the head. Guy in my fraternity grew up poor, and was an extremely hard worker in college. He saved enough money to buy a truck with a custom paint job. This town our college was in has a sizable population of weight. He catches kid down the road keying his truck one night, marches the kid down to his house where the kid's mom tells him to fuck off. Knowing this family had no money, he knew he was screwed as far as getting any money out of them to repair his truck. So he waits. He waits until winter and it is freezing cold out. Very late one night he puts a tow chain on the back of his truck and the other end on the doorknob on the front door of that kid's house. He then proceeded to rip the door and the door jamb off the house. Said he hit a bump in the yard and the chain fell off his truck, so he didn't even have to get out and unhook it. That guy is the CEO of a company now and has done very well in life. I had an uncle who was cruel and abusive. He'd hit anyone he didn't like, and my mom, his sister, was his favorite target until she fought back. He'd target us, the children, because we'd cry and not fight back. Several of my younger cousins had enough of his shit, so we gave him shit. We'd go to his house and either shit in his front yard, front steps, and even in his house when we can get in. One day I had bad diarrhea, which was from food poisoning from food he gave me. He was out drinking, so I went and just let loose on his front porch. It was a lot and I was actually scared, which how much came out. Went home and pretended to be asleep. One hears screaming and cursing and my grandma is the first on scene and she sees her son rolling around in shit. It was everywhere, and I dare say it might have gotten in his mouth too. Everyone there thought he'd gotten so drunk he wot himself. He was still an asshole, but whenever he was we'd give him shit. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one.